Shimon Waronker has an unlikely story. A Chassidic Jew and former U.S. Army intelligence officer, Waronker became the principal of one of New York's most violent schools in 2004. Combining his military counterinsurgency training and yeshiva-style educational principles, he was able to defeat the gangs and turn the school into a model institution. Shimon's story has been well documented, and he received a French knighthood for his work in 2009. Currently a doctoral student in Harvard's Urban Superintendence Program, Waronker was in Sydney recently as a guest of Chabad House of the North Shore. JNTV caught up with the educator after his talk at New South Wales Parliament House. What originally drew you into the field of education, or the desire to teach or help young people to grow and to empower them?
I began teaching in Satmar in Williamsburg, Brooklyn, and I realized I was good at it. I enjoyed it very much, and I wrote a letter to the Rebbe, the Lubavitcher Rebbe, and of course the Lubavitcher Rebbe has passed away. But what Hasidim do is they write letters and they put them in Igros HaKodesh, which are responsa of the Rebbe. And there are dozens of volumes of responsa. And then you open up the volume and say, well, what's the answer there? And what was very interesting was when I had begun teaching part-time and I realized I was really good at it and I enjoyed it very much, I wrote, Rebbe, should I go into the field of education? And this was the response that I got at random. You should understand what your talent is. Your talent is in education. And you need to also understand what it means to educate a human being. A human being, according to the Torah, is often compared to a tree. And a tree, when it's older and it's crooked, it's very difficult to straighten. But when it's a sapling, when it's a young tree, it's much easier to straighten. And your talent is in straightening saplings. I was like, yes, boss. And now, in retrospect, you can see the power of the Rebbe's letter and its influence.
Has being a religious Jew, has that helped you or hindered you in your career?
Both. Originally, because I was a religious, observant Jew, the superintendents had difficulty trying to hire me. They said, well, you're not Chinese, you can't lead a Chinese school. You're not black, you can't lead a black school. You're a Chassidic Jew, you can't lead an Hispanic school, even though I spoke Spanish. And so it's not necessarily that you have to have the same skin color or background. Leadership transcends that. And good leadership practices allow one to succeed in any situation. And eventually, thank goodness, I was selected to be a principal, but that was in November. Almost all my colleagues had posts before September when school starts, and I didn't. And that was because they kept asking questions. Well, you will shave, won't you? And I said, no. How will you supervise Saturday programs? So, well, I'll have an assistant principal. Well, how will you know that assistant principal is doing a good job? So with those kind of questions, they were reluctant to hire me as a principal. But eventually one superintendent took a chance and did hire me as a principal. Of course, they gave me one of the 12 most violent schools of New York City.
Was that something you thought was a challenge that you were keen to take on, or was it a bit daunting for you?
I was not keen on taking it. I prayed for 3 days prior to taking the post. There are challenges that could be career enders. Those are bad enough, but there are other challenges that could possibly take your life. And I had a wife and wonderful children, and much to live for. And so I was very reluctant. But once given the mission, be totally committed to it.
Another influence in your life, I'm just assuming, is probably your Jewish background. Has that also influenced how you approach education and leadership?
Yes. You see, in Yiddishkeit, we value every learner. We value every member of the community. We're not big believers in top-down structures. We believe that everyone should have questions, and every question is a good question. It's the question that's not asked that's the bad question. And as a result, we empower our learners constantly. We empower members of our community to have voice. This is something that's a Jewish value that creates a lot of collaboration. Of course, some people look at it as dissension, but dissension is good. People shouldn't follow things blindly. People should have their own thinking, their own mind. They should understand what their values are. And I think this is a Jewish value that is a very powerful one that helped me help the school.
Benji Holzman, JNTV.